Hey Ernesto, really glad to share your story with the rest of the students. And I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your background.
Sure. So yeah, for those who don't know, yeah, my name is Ernesto. I started this journey 7 months ago, so in July. At that time, I was just not happy with the job that I had. I was working at Metro by T-Mobile, at a phone store, and I was not making a lot of money there. 13.50 an hour, that's like 22K a year. So it wasn't really that good, also the way I was treated, etc. And I ran into one of your videos. So it wasn't you that made it. It was Shane Muniz. I think that's the name of him.
Hmm.
And yeah, he was interviewing you. You were talking about course careers. I actually spoke with you on the phone, and you were like, "Yeah, man, try it out," and I did. And here we are. That's kind of the summary, but yeah, it's been a long journey for sure.
Awesome, man. So you found us from a video, and now you're currently working as a sales development rep, coming from a background where you were making 13.50 an hour working at Metro PCS.
Yeah, I was making like 22K a year. It was not good.
Wow. And rough estimate, how much can you expect to make in your first year as an SDR?
So definitely it's on the 60K. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so around 60K coming from like 22K. So I'll pretty much triple your income.
That's 3 times. And the funny thing too is that I'm I wouldn't say I'm doing less work, but it's like, you know how it is at a retail store, you're doing more things. So in here it's you put in the work, you get paid for it. So yeah.
Exactly. And how does it feel to be able to tell people you work in technology sales now compared to telling people you worked at Metro PCS?
Yeah, I would say, hey man, I'm not a failure anymore. Like shoot. Like, I would see the people's faces when I tell them, yeah, I'm working at Metro by T-Mobile, and they're like, oh, are you going to college? I'm like, well, I guess, yeah, but so it's relieving knowing that there's a future, right? This is once you're in, there's so many opportunities. It's just honestly crazy. So yeah.
For sure. And let's take a step back and learn a little bit more about your background. So when you're working at Metro PCS, were you in college or did you decide not to go to college? Did you graduate college?
Yeah, so for my first, I was there for 2 years before I decided to make the jump. So when I first started, I wasn't going to college, but the last 5 months that I was there, I was going to college. Yes, and I still am actually. So
Gotcha. Okay, so you're currently enrolled in college and you went through CourseCareers at the same time then?
yeah, yeah, it was very hectic, very busy, but yeah.
Wow. And now that you currently landed a position as a sales development rep, are you still enrolled in college?
Yeah, I graduated in February, so yeah. I just want to graduate. Just to say, hey man, I graduated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure the other people in school right now are kind of jealous. They're looking at you. You already are working in a job that they would probably envy and wish they could land after they graduate. But
yeah.
awesome job, man. And share us a little bit about the journey going through course careers. Like, how long did it take to learn the material? Was it all new to you, or did you already know some of the stuff?
Oof, it was a long journey, man. So, I mean, obviously, I started in the beginning. So, I got into CourseCareers. I started learning about. I didn't know what the concept of an SDR was. I
Hmm.
assume nowadays people are more aware of what it is, but before I even know, so it was learning the foundations. So, what is an SDR? What do they do? Then after I
Hmm.
finished, I was like, oh, okay. So I'll just go to the partner companies. But then, things started to get busier at the time. Like people started finding out about it. So for
Hmm.
example, for Grin, I was trying to like get to them and there was like 600 applicants. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to go job hunting. So it took me 1 month to finish and I started job hunting obviously after I finished. And after that, I just faced like rejection after rejection. I did like, no kidding, I did 1,000 applications, 50 plus interviews. I was grinding a lot because I was trying to find a job. I
Yeah.
like, I went through like BS pyramid scheme interviews. from
Yeah.
those, those pyramid schemes like World Financial Group, those were BS. And yeah, through all that, I managed to land in that one company, RevGen. And then, yeah, but it took I had to apply a lot. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And what kind of advice after since you went through the interview process and interviewed with all of these different companies, what advice would you give to someone currently going through that interview process now?
Yeah, I would say there's a ton of information out there that people aren't aware of it, right? Like in school, you're not really taught these things. No one's out here saying, "Hey, when you go into an interview, this is how you have to talk to the recruiter." Because there's like three stages before you get the offer, right? So
Hmm.
I didn't even know that going into it. So I think learning how to act on an interview before you go into the interview, that would be helpful. And overall, just like talk to your course mates, see who's with you, and try to see how they're going. Definitely the community is a big thing.
And do you think the community was one of the more valuable parts of course careers?
Yeah, they honestly helped me a lot. If honestly, if it wasn't for them, like I I I couldn't even say that I would be here, because it was just the support that I got from them. Because at the time, the people around me, they were like, "What are you doing? You don't even have a bachelor degree." So
Yeah.
having those people to rely on, it was great. So yeah.
For sure. I know when I was going through the journey of starting my career as a sales development rep, I didn't have the community. And that's one of the reasons I started this company is because it is so valuable to have a group of people who has the same goal as you, people who are actively interviewing with companies or have interviewed with companies or currently working in the roles of sales development rep. They know what it's like. They can share advice. They can keep you motivated and accountable. So I think that's really the game changer because it's not easy at the end of the day. Like this is a professional job. So it's not like you're just gonna finish and instantly land a position. You have to learn, practice, 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 and then kill the interview, land the position. And then once you start working, it's also a grind, isn't it?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I got so much information in regards to like interviewing. It's honestly gross. Like I learned so much because I had to go through the same process 50 times, like 50 plus times. So yeah,
Yeah,
from that, and then also in the job, it's the same. You're still getting rejected. It's tough, but at the end of the day, I would prefer to be here than where I was, right? Because I was still putting the effort, it's still sales, but you're just making more money. So yeah.
exactly. So now, are you working in office? Are you fully remote?
No, I'm fully remote.
Wow. So you were having to go to like a T-Mobile Metro PCS store, 13.50 an hour, walk around, manually like talk with customers and mess around with phones. And now you're just sitting in your home office on track to make around 60K in your first year. So almost triple what you were making before. And I think best of all is you actually have a career path.
Yeah.
So can you share with us what it feels like to know that there's like advancement in this career? You're not just going to be stuck here for the next 10 years.
Yeah. So the thing about remote that's different about on-site is that on-site you have someone behind you saying, "Hey, get your numbers." But when you're remote, I was thinking to myself while I was making the call calls, I was like, wait, I could just not make the call calls, right? But then I was like,
Yeah.
well, if I don't make the call calls, then I lose the job, right? So you have to find ways to motivate yourself. This is for people who have a strong mental aptitude, right? Because you have to constantly remind yourself like, hey, this is a job. You have to make sure you're hitting the numbers. So you need to be strong mentally, like when you're going into this. So yeah.
For sure. And what kind of advice would you give to someone who was in your shoes? Let's say they're working at a phone store or retail, making $13 an hour, and now they want to transition into a sales development rep. Would you recommend them go through course careers, and what kind of advice would you give?
Yeah. Honestly, this is why I like this interview, because or testimony or whatever, because it gives you a retrospective of how I was when I started. I definitely didn't know what I knew. I definitely hadn't gone through anything like that before. So what I would say is, as soon as you should try to get as soon as possible any sort of information, right? So course careers, I actually came out with a course myself since I saw what people were going through. So I came out with my own course called like Land the Role. So I would say get your hands on any information and try to educate yourself as fast as possible. So if you have to pay for it, if you have to make that $500 investment, no matter if you're like, oh my God, it's $500, but compared to like let's say college or boot camp, it's like it's nothing. Go on. So information, try to absorb as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think at a $60,000 like a year salary, I'm pretty sure it's like a 2.5 day return on investment. So like 2.5 days on the job, you pay for your $500 back compared to college, which is like maybe in 10 years you'll pay it back.
Yeah,
So
the
it's just
value on this is just you've never seen anything like it, to be honest, if I had to say.
yeah, exactly. And any advice you would give to people currently going through course careers right now and looking to land a position as an SDR?
Yeah, I would say, you have to be consistent. And an error I see with a lot of people is that they don't really put in the volume, right? They say, oh, I'm just putting in a couple minutes or a couple hours a day, and it's not really working. You have to put in the effort. And sometimes people don't have the right idea of what putting the effort is, right? They think it's a
Hmm.
couple hours a week. So make sure you're putting in the work. If not, you're not going to see results. And that goes the same with job hunting. You have to send out a lot of applications. It's funny, I saw like a LinkedIn post, someone said, oh, I sent out 30 applications in 3 months. I didn't get a job. I'm like, that's not how it works. It's a lot of
Yeah.
applications. So yeah, volume, consistency. Yeah.
And how similar would you say is like applying and interviewing with companies compared to actually the job of a sales development rep? Because I usually make the comparison that they're pretty similar in the fact that it's a numbers game. You are selling yourself in the job, and for the company, you're selling the company's product.
Yeah, I used to say that actually that some people are worried about the cold calls. They're like, man, what about the cold calls? I'm like, well, you had to go through the rejection of interviews. So it's
Hmm.
it's honestly the same in terms of preparation. You're still getting rejected. So and then you're learning how to prospect because you know I all this stuff that I know now in terms of going into my job, figuring out how to find companies, etc. That's I learned through finding companies to interview with. So it's all the same.
Hmm. And where do you see yourself going over the next 5 years now that you have broken into technology?
Yeah. It's funny. I used to get that question on like every interview. So I would say, yeah, you become an SDR. Then for me, I'm either trying to become an account executive or with the course that I created, I plan on doing the same as you, help a lot of people. So it's literally called Land the Role for name. I'm trying to help people go past the job hunting, so get them to the landing the role. So that's either try to help others that were in my same position, or yeah, just aim as help as I can. So
For sure. Well, sounds good, Ernesto. I really appreciate you sharing your story with the rest of the students, and I hope it will help some people realize that it is possible to make the transition, even if you are currently a college student and don't have a degree. So thanks again for doing this.
no problem. I appreciate it.